When I was younger, I was very gullible and I fell for this false version of masculinity that society had sold me. Think of the Andrew Tate archetype. Someone who can hold his liquor, smokes a cigar, has sex with as many women as possible, is kind of a jerk. Now, this version of masculinity cost me my health. It cost me my relationship with God, my relationship with people around me. I was chronically addicted to sex, alcohol, weed, and to be honest, it created a failure of a man. Now, saving myself from that, being outside of that bubble, I see that men are still stuck with those same ideas, just maybe slight different version of it. Now, this version of masculinity that's being sold, especially to Gen Z on social media, is just a lie. It's performative. And I think a lot of people don't understand that this version of masculinity it's very dangerous. It's dangerous because it feels good. It feels good when you're drunk. I'm not ashamed to admit that. It feels good when you're high. It feels good when you're running through women and pretty much living off a dab pen that, you said you were gonna throw away 3 weeks ago. Now, my late teenage years were unfortunately lived that way. And all they made was a guy with fake confidence that was performing for other people. Because, well, without that performance, all that I did was pretty much useless. Now, see, something that took me a while to learn is that being a man requires a certain level of discomfort. See, in reality, the guy who drinks and smokes the most or sleeps with the most amount of women, well, they experience the least amount of discomfort. A guy that runs through a lot of women, they have no standard for themselves. Being a man requires selectivity, sacrifice, and discomfort. Now, a lot of men that I talk to think that feminism is responsible for this decline of real masculinity in men. I've even had a lot of guys tell me that, well, a woman made me this way. And no, a woman didn't make you this way. Feminism didn't just make men weak. Men became weak because they started embracing comfort rather than discomfort. See, we live in a world where comfort is wildly available. It's everywhere. And when comfort is always available, well, discomfort doesn't look very appealing anymore. See, men don't really work on themselves because it's uncomfortable. Men don't go up to women because it's uncomfortable. Men stopped holding convictions because, well, convictions bring opposition. And that opposition in your life is uncomfortable. See, it's really hard to accept this, and it was for me, but this is the only point where a man can actually begin to build himself and save himself from this fake idea of masculinity, is that it's all your fault. The only person responsible for where you are is you. See, your brain, it can't tell the difference between earned reward and stolen reward. Now, what is stolen reward? Think of when you eat some BS food that you know you shouldn't be having, or when you're jerking off, watching porn, when you're watching Netflix when you know you're supposed to be working, scrolling on your phone for 3 hours. Well, your brain, it releases dopamine, and dopamine is released when you accomplish something. Now, what makes this really bad is not only what happens in that moment, but what happens the morning or a day after. See, when you're hit with that dopamine, your brain thinks that you're actually useful. You actually did something of value. So your brain learns that it doesn't have to actually do anything to get that reward. That, in line, brings down the baseline of dopamine production. And once that baseline for dopamine drops low enough, real life just doesn't really feel good anymore. See, this is why majority of men have anxiety. Majority of men have depression. Nobody knows what the hell they want to do with their life. Men can't even speak to a woman anymore. So what's really dangerous about this fake dopamine production is that you're literally being destroyed from the inside out by things that you think are good for you. And to be fully transparent and honest with you, it always starts with your body. So your body, it's honest. You can't really hide it. It doesn't care what you tell yourself or the excuses that you can come up with in 10, 20 minutes. It doesn't really care about your plans to start on this day or this month or this year. You're out of shape. You need to think of your body as a physical record of the decisions you make when nobody is watching. Now, majority of men have let themselves go. This is why 70-something% of America is overweight. And I don't say that to judge you. However, I see the same version of myself, the same fat kid, in other people. And honestly, a dumbbell would fix that problem for pretty much everybody. And honestly, it's not even about the gym. You don't have to spend an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours in a gym every day. What you're really looking for is the discipline that's built in the gym. So you're developing a skill, and that skill is the ability to push through discomfort. Now that skill will translate into everything: your marriage, your faith, a business, your job, school. See, the body isn't the goal, the discipline is. And your body is just a proof of that discipline actually existing. So your body, it bleeds into every other aspect of your life. Women being a really big one. I don't want to say the art of approaching women has disappeared, but honestly, like, men approaching women has disappeared. And the only thing we really see is on social media is some pickup artist saying some cheesy pickup line. I'm not talking about that. Like, the idea, or the man that's confident and just goes up to a girl, introduces themselves, and, you know, is able to hold a conversation, that just doesn't exist anymore. I don't see it. And it's crazy because the simple, confident act of just approaching a woman, introducing yourself, that actually shocks women now. Like, when I do it, that reaction is not like, oh, get the hell away from me. It's just shock, because women aren't being approached anymore. It's always this look that's like trying to process, like, oh, this is like actually happening. Now, men aren't just not going up to women because they want to respect them. No, they're staying back and not approaching them because it's extremely uncomfortable. Rejection is uncomfortable. So they don't try. And not trying, not just with women, but in business, in life in general, well, that will start to shrink a man. And when I say I see myself in a lot of modern men, I'm not lying. You know, I spent years wasting my life, letting, you know, others get ahead without me ever having the confidence to take what's mine. See, that gap between men at the top and men at the bottom, it's getting wider. And honestly, it's the widest it's ever been. And it is not because it's harder to get to the top, it's just because men don't really want to try anymore. It's very scary to be in a position where you choose the bottom. You choose the lesser outcome. See, you make probably 1,000 small daily choices every single day. A lot of them being, well, I'm going to pick the couch over the gym, or I'm going to scroll over actually getting up and getting work done. Well, those daily choices build your life. A comfortable life does not build a man who will get to the top 1%, whether you want to be rich, whether you want to be in shape, a good family. Well, that life comes to a man that tries. That life comes to a man who's willing to sacrifice everything to get it. And it sounds really hard, but honestly, it's just being different from the majority. Think of what the majority does. They spend their life on the couch, either watching Netflix or scrolling on their phone, jerking off, watching porn, eating BS food. And that's exactly why being different from the majority has literally never been easier. I have yet to see anyone or any generation be this committed to mediocrity. Now, I've worked with hundreds of men building not just their body and getting them big biceps, but their mind, their body, their spirit, and actually aligning these and, you know, creating them into the masculine man that they're supposed to be. And I've noticed every single time that the moment we started incorporating more uncomfortable things, yes, it's very difficult. Yes, there was a lot of pushback, but something actually shifts. A lot of people can't necessarily explain it. I like to say that's you operating in your real masculine. That's your brain being useful. That's your brain actually registering, well, okay, this guy's actually like doing something with his life. And that's because a man is built by pushing against the grain, by resistance. See, the day you stop pushing against resistance, you conform. You basically set a baseline for yourself, and that baseline will drop over time. And most of you know where that path ends. For me, it ends with being 300 pounds, addicted to porn, addicted to sex, addicted to drugs. So it all comes down to you and the active choice that you make to embrace the uncomfortable every day. And that is the reset that majority of men need. Now, underneath all of this being lack of exercise, lack of a good diet, confidence, is identity. See, a lot of people are sold a cheaper version of themselves. That's practically impossible to do with someone who knows his worth and knows who he is. A man should have standards, and a guy that does have standards will not settle for anything less than that. See, majority of men, they don't know who they are. They don't know what their identity is, what they're born to do. They do know what they consume. They know what they like. They know what turns them on or what foods they love. But the thing is, who they actually are, what actually builds them, what will turn them into a man of substance that's capable of being a father, a husband, a family man, wrapping it up into an identity. Well, they don't even know what that is. See, and a lot of men struggle with this because when the biggest priority in your life is yourself, your life becomes very meek. It becomes meaningless. See, for me, my faith in Christ completely changed everything. Now, I started as what I would label a performative Christian. I was going to church, I didn't really know the meaning of it. I was saying a bunch of stuff, but not really understanding it. My ego, this idea of comfort, it still consumed me. However, when I understood that there's actually something bigger than me, it's bigger than just let me make some money. It's bigger than I just want to have a kid. It's bigger than my ego, my comfort. It's bigger than the fear that changed my life. Now, I'm not saying get up and go to a church. I'm just saying that every guy who was able to change, make an actual significant transformation, always had something that was bigger than just himself. See, without that anchor, that support, your discipline will end at some point. However, once you have it, that discipline becomes identity, and your identity doesn't just disappear. Honestly, to wrap it up, the number of men that are thrown in the towel, the number of men that are becoming weaker, the number of men that are choosing the comfortable life over the uncomfortable life is increasing at an alarming rate. See, the number of men that are gonna look back at this current phase of their life when they're 50, 60, 70, and genuinely look at it with regret, that's going to increase. However, the number of men at the top, that is shrinking. The window of success has never been larger for a man that's just willing to be a tiny bit different. See, all it takes is to be the person that approaches the girl, to be the person that works the extra hour, to be the person that prioritizes the gym, prioritizes the diet, who builds his body, the person who doesn't choose comfort. That is available to every man. You just need to reach out and grab it.